Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where you are invited for lighthearted conversations about things that matter as you seek to live your most meaningful, beautiful, and joyful life. I'm your host, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, and I hope you enjoy your stay here at the House of Joy. Hi, everyone.
Okay, usually we coordinate who's gonna go first. Who's gonna go first?
I just dropped a bomb right before we started. I said, by the way, I'm knitting on this podcast, so don't.
I know, and she didn't even tell me, and she didn't even invite me to her knitting party. So, if you're wondering how things are going in this house,
it's been a day. But let me tell you something. This episode is gonna bless your soul. We are talking about your past and learning how to overcome your past, healing from trauma. Mm-hmm. What was the last part? You just read it to me. And reimagining your story. This is literally the bread and butter and jam of my life, because this is how I started my own journey, was by healing my past. So this is going to be a fun one. We decided to do this, you guys, because yesterday Katie and Emmy drove here so we could start recording the podcast. And little did we know that little granny, my little mama, was going to show up unannounced, and she goes, I have until 5. And we were like, cool. Yes, because listen, a granny day is the best kind of day.
And yes, this happened before we filmed some other podcast. She came during our podcast day, and it like totally gives us so much to talk about.
So much to talk about, because we ended up, as we always do, she told us a bunch of great stories and some horrifying stories, and it inspired us. And I'm like, oh, we've really never talked about this, despite the fact that I wrote a memoir called All the Pretty Things about my past. So if you haven't read that, we'll put the link for that in the show notes.
Yes.
This is going to be a fun episode because, again, topics that weren't just important to me when I wrote that memoir, but in our adoption of Tom and all the recurring themes that come up with my own clients. This is really something that I think is important. And even if you don't feel like your own past has been an issue or you haven't had trauma, even just learning how to reimagine what you have believed about yourself in the past, the stories that you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of doing, we're going to really reimagine those today too. So I'm really excited.
I know, this is a really good one. And I like what you said, because I fall into that category of I can look at my past and there's not a ton of trauma.
Yeah.
But even me, I tell myself a lot of dramatic stories about.
Yes.
And I think even telling yourself, oh, I have nothing to be. There's no reason for me to feel struggle about certain things. That's also a story. And
it's kind of like belittling yourself and not honoring yourself and not acknowledging yourself in whatever struggle you're in. And so I think this is really important. This is also coming out at a time of year when I feel like it's my absolute favorite time of year. First of all, it's knitting season, y'all.
Knitting season. It's fall, y'all. Welcome, fall.
Football season. Knitting season. If you're watching on YouTube, everyone behold the new knitting stitch that I just learned. As I'm making a fisherman's scarf, I felt like it was due time for me to make
the joy of your mother, like, living her life on Instagram is that I'll find things out about her day-to-day life that I wouldn't have known if it weren't that she posted on her story. And she has been working on this blue yarned scarf, not this one, don't even get it twisted, for a year. Like, every time I come into the house, it's there. And I went on my Instagram and I was like, oh, mom posted, let's see, she's ripping out this scarf that she has been working on for a year. And I slid up. I was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? Why do I have to come on Instagram and be scared of, like, what you're doing?
Why are you ripping out your scarf?
And she was like...
She was highly offended. But let me just tell you something, Em. All things happen exactly as they're supposed to, because... Let me tell you why. Because this is such a beautiful acronym. It's such a good object lesson.
Okay.
For what we're going to talk about today. Because... I was making this scarf, and the reason that I started the scarf is because I was with Ellie. I started
in
this
Pittsburgh,
right? With Ellie. We bought the same yarn. She made a gorgeous scarf with a pattern, and I didn't really love that pattern, so I just started straight knitting, just knit. So I would have a project that I didn't have to think about, because I'm also making a blanket, and I have to concentrate with that.
Yeah.
So I wanted one I didn't have to think on, and I just kept doing it because it's there. Like, oh, let me just knit, and I love knitting. But I didn't love the scarf.
Like, you knew you wouldn't wear it.
I'm like, I'm not going to wear
and
that scarf.
Actually, I shouldn't even judge you, because I would totally do the same thing.
Yeah.
I would totally rip out all my work.
And that's kind of like what we're talking about with rewriting your story. Mm-hmm. You may be writing a story unconsciously about your life that you don't love. And the great news is you get to decide, like, okay, I don't love that one. Here's my idea for what I do want to create. I want to make a fisherman's scarf. By the way, what did I just do right there? Let's just pretend that didn't just happen. Okay. So you get to start over. And this is such a beautiful thing about doing like thought work and having the tools that we talk about, that we teach. And actually in Life Mentoring School this month, this is exactly what we're talking about. Like finding the old stories. How have you been living by default? How have you been living unconsciously, and deciding on purpose, what do you want to create, and start creating it?
And I love you, because there's not one thing that you couldn't tie back to knitting.
There is not one thing.
One day we should challenge her. I'm just going to give you a random topic.
How does it relate to knitting?
How can you tie this into knitting?
Oh, believe me.
And I know you could every time.
I can do it every time. The other thing before we dive in is that I was just telling Emmy, I love these podcast days, and we haven't had one in a while. We pre-recorded a lot of our stuff that we've been posting, because we were kind of taking the summer off, not off, but light. And we haven't been here. And this little sofa that we sit on feels to me like a therapy couch.
It is. And I was, as you guys probably maybe know, we've been talking about it for all summer basically, but hadn't actually did depart from us.
Yep.
And he'll be gone for a while. And I was thinking about these podcasts and how cool it is that he can listen to these.
Oh, that's right. We love you, Hado.
And he'll always, because we always are talking about what we're doing in that season. And we're, for the most part, we really record every other week. So we're pretty up to date about what we're doing.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my gosh, he gets to listen to these podcasts and know what we're doing. Yes. And I thought that was so fun. And it really is like therapy.
That we are in our knitting season right now.
It really is like therapy. Like, I do leave these. It does feel like a session. Yes. And I leave, and it is so motivating to me. And then I always am ready and like need it when we come back. But it has been a while. It's been like, I don't know. Has it been a month?
It's been more than that. I would say 6 or 8 weeks since we were here.
So,
so we're excited to be
this is awesome. And it just, it is like such a comforting place to be. So,
yes, love you, Em.
Love you.
I want to thank our Katie, who produces our podcast. She's sitting over there looking at us.
She's a strong warrior.
In Tom's gaming headphones. You look great, Katie. Katie has been reading my book. So this has also been interesting, because Katie has really no context. So it was interesting yesterday to chat about it with her. And then we, of course, had Granny here filling us in on all the stories. I kept saying over and over, I am going to buy back the rights to this book and add all of these great stories in that I was probably afraid to add initially.
Oh, my gosh. You listen, because I read a little less than half of the book. And even then, you get such a different perspective when she starts telling it, because it's her real life. And she talks about the people that are like kind of like they're the characters in your book, but they're real. And hearing her talk about like that was her experience. It's wild. It is wild to hear that was really the life that she lived.
And the cool thing is, like, as we have, this year has been, a lot about finalizing our adoption with Tom. and helping him process through his own trauma. So walking with him through his trauma often brings up a lot of things for me. And we have, done a lot of therapy together. It's like the most beautiful thing to be with him in a session, kind of us both working through things. Like, it has been literally one of the most life-giving things, because I feel like it has continued to help me heal from my own stuff. And the reason that I think this is so important is because I was listening to a podcast last week about generational trauma. And the thing of it is, most people are living with some sort of it and don't realize it. And then they have, because it's unhealed, because they haven't brought all of that stuff that's unconscious into their awareness, into their consciousness, people are just operating from their trauma wounds. And
they don't even
know it.
Realize it.
Yeah. And their relationships are informed by that. That's why we have so many people that have terrible time in relationships. I didn't realize until I started working through this on my own, before the book came out, I didn't realize that so many ways that I was operating, like in my family, in my marriage, in my life, was guided by these unhealed wounds. And this, like, for me, it was always this overachieving. How can I prove my worth? How can I do enough that I feel loved and accepted, that other people love and accept me? And, I remember the first time it dawned on me, like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I would have gone to medical school
if it weren't for your
that
past.
Yeah, because it was like another giant way to go, oh, well, if I can do this, achieve this, then surely, number one, everyone else will accept me, and surely I'll accept myself. And turns out there's nothing externally that is going to do that for you until you truly embrace that you are a child of God who is loved exactly how you are. You don't have to change to come to him. You don't have to go to medical school. You don't have to achieve a bunch of stuff. He loves you. And it has really been, for me, like a journey of learning to believe what he says is true about me, and recognizing when I'm still trying to prove it to other people, to myself. And yeah, it's been quite an experience. And I just think that it's something that we have to keep talking about, because we have so many people, even if you just think about what's happened in our world since COVID, like the trauma that a lot of the kids went through, and how behind people got in school, and then just all the, just everything that season of life brought for us. I think it's just something that we have to keep addressing. And I will say, and you guys know this because you're here with us a lot, that this is not something in my own life, in Thomas's life, in anybody's life who's been through this kind of thing. This is not something that heals overnight.
Definitely not. Yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, like my growing up was informed by all the healing that you had, I think you did a lot of it doing as I grew up.
And you did have, a certain house fire.
Yeah.
Was pretty traumatic.
I try not to discredit the things, because even then, there's things like child's brain, even if it's small.
Yes.
You can't
you
understand.
Take a message that you internalize, something your mom said or something your dad said.
Like your parents can be great and you still can deal with things, and they can change how you look at situations. But watching Thomas like grow up, it's like watching someone. I didn't experience a childhood like his, and I also didn't experience your childhood. And so I'm hearing both of these things, and I can see like through his trauma and just him dealing with it. And so many people don't understand his like reaction and his way of, dealing with people in the moment.
Yeah.
And watching that bring out certain things in you, like there are certain things where it's like, oh, I wouldn't have expected mom to react like that, but then you realize like, oh, but she has all this stuff too. And I started the book, her book that she wrote, All the Pretty Things, you told us the whole time when you wrote it. I was probably 16 when you actually published it, but
yeah.
You always said, like, you do not need to read this if you don't want.
Need to read this. Mm-hmm.
And I actually would probably suggest you don't read this until you're, like, a little older. And so a couple years ago, well, I guess a little less than that, I was like, okay, I am ready to read it. And so I got, like, probably, like, 4 chapters in, and it was, like, too...
You're like, nope.
It was too disconnected. Like, I couldn't... It was too weird. It was too weird because also we were talking about this in the car, me and Katie. Like, your writing in that is incredible. Like, it feels like such a well-written book that I would just want to read of anyone's. But then I would get too enthralled in the story, then realizing it was you.
Yeah.
And your family. Mm-hmm. Like, it was too weird. And family members that I know... Like, it was just, I couldn't connect it. It was too weird. So I never finished it.
Yeah.
But even seeing that glimpse into how much I really didn't know.
Yeah.
And even with Tom, we talk about sometimes, like, how much we don't know.
Right.
Of what could have happened to him.
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah. And that trauma response that someone learns to live with, and it can be a little different for other people, for everybody. For me, it wasn't as much like, it was more an internalized fight or flight.
You wouldn't.
And his is more of an externalized.
Yeah, you see it all.
You see it, yeah. And either way, I think it's so important in our world for us to just be, you know, for lack of a better word, more trauma informed. Because so many people are dealing with some version of that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times... what it causes us to do is kind of disconnect from ourselves, disconnect from our bodies, and like some of the messages that you can internalize that I know I've internalized and probably Thomas has internalized is where I am is not safe. Mm-hmm. So I'm either going to have to take care of myself.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be on me.
Yeah.
And it creates this like way of being in the world which isn't healthy.
Well, it's because like there is no other way. Like, your instinct in a hard situation is probably always going to be to disconnect.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't live like that as much anymore, but I'm sure
it's like a trick. It's like instantly
it doesn't matter how long it goes.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably it.
Yeah.
The only thing I can connect to with that is like from the fire. I think it was a similar thing. Like, when you're going through something like that, and even it reminds me of, like, what the people in these surrounding areas are probably going through right now with such devastation and loss, like,
from the flooding,
in such a huge way from the flooding. Like, what else are you going to do? You have to keep going, and mostly the way to do that is to disconnect from
it's
what
too much
reality
to process
is.
at
Like,
the
you
time.
can't process it.
Right.
And I think I did do that through the fire because I was only 10.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like people were taking care of my life.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of disconnecting from the reality of what happened.
Yeah.
And so it will come up sometimes, like in smaller ways. It's not like it really affects my day-to-day life, but random things will be like, I have not. There's something still there
that I need to bring into awareness.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think is so powerful about doing this work, and this is what I've learned from doing a lot of my own work on it, therapy, coaching, and from doing it with Thomas, is that you're so scared to look to see, like, okay, I know there's things there. You're scared to look. It's like, if I just don't look, then it'll just go away.
It won't affect me.
And I'll be fine. It won't affect me, except it will. And what I have learned over and over and over again is that as soon as you open that closet to see those skeletons or to face those demons or however, whatever metaphor you want to use, the crazy thing about it is it's like, it feels a little bit like a Wizard of Oz when they discover that the thing making it all go,
it wasn't actually
this is all, not a farce, it's not that, But when you can see through it, you go, oh, I have let this thing control my life for so long.
You've built it up almost.
I built it up to be such a demon, such a monster, so insurmountable. That's what I did. Like, I just imagined that I could never get over my past because it was true. I'm like, well, I can't pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
I can't pretend it's not true. So then I guess you can never get over it. And we're going to talk about some ways that you actually can, and that I was able to do that. So I know that it's possible for you. I know it's possible. This is why we keep working on this thing for Thomas, is that this is so totally doable. And what you realize is that, oh, all this took is me bringing this into my awareness, letting God's love permeate and speak into it, and continuing to do that, continuing to stay connected to myself, continuing to figure out ways to create safety for myself in healthy ways. Mm-hmm. I was trying to create safety for myself by, like, if I overachieve enough, you know, and then when that didn't work, you kind of, I slid into a bunch of bad habits. Well, if I eat enough or shop enough or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like letting your subconscious take over. Like, you don't want to deal with it, so you just let the things happen that your mind is just first going to.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, becoming aware of how your thoughts and what you're creating, it's probably easier at first to just let the things happen as they might, you know?
And it's also, so the thought work is really important, but the other piece of it is how your emotions, how your body is conditioned to the trauma, how your body is conditioned to fight or flight. This is something that I've really learned so much about in the last few years, is that your body is so conditioned to it that you go into that state without giving yourself permission to.
Yeah,
and
it's
you have
just it's like subconscious.
You just go right into it. Yeah. And so then you have these bodily responses of sweating and heart rate and fighting, you know, like, think of all the things: fight, flight, fawn, freeze. For me, a lot of my response would be to freeze and just, like, not deal with life, you know. Tom's response tends to be more fight, but recognizing these patterns and helping him, like, giving him a name for it and helping him realize, like, listen, because you can start to feel like you're just damaged.
And I do
something
think
wrong with you.
Honestly, like, when you look at the way the newest generation has been brought up with just so much access to
too much
yeah, all around,
too much of everything,
I think it kind of does lead people to believe that they should stay in that, like, victim mentality, and not that it's not true, right? But no one is really telling you to make it better for yourself, right? They're kind of the message is, like, poor you because these things happen to you, which is true,
and you need to acknowledge that,
and you have to. But I think they keep it there,
instead of, like, there is so much potential and availability here for you to create whatever you want. You don't have to keep living.
And it doesn't have to dismiss what happened to you. And I think that's where it gets really lost, is, like, there's an assumption that if you get over or, like, allow yourself to take control, that you're kind of dismissing the bad things that happen to you. But I don't think it has to do that at all.
Right. Dismissing them, or in some ways letting the person who hurt you or whatever, letting them off the hook. Yeah. But really the truth of the matter is you're letting yourself off the hook, because you're on the hook. You're the one living this way. You're the one easily triggered. You're the one living in fight or flight. You're the one experiencing your life in a way you don't love. And what you'll do is, even when you're removed from the trauma, you're so conditioned in your body to live this way that you'll keep recreating circumstances to keep the drama going, to keep the fight or flight going. Yep. I remember when I would drive to Knoxville, I can't even remember the last time I did this, but for years, when I would drive to Knoxville, if you guys would be at school and I would be like, I'm going to go run errands, 9 times out of 10, I would end up in the cemetery where my dad was buried,
Wow.
sobbing in the cemetery.
Like every time.
I'm like, what? And it was crazy because I'm like, okay, I have this amazing life. I am blessed with so many things. I have these amazing kids. I have this amazing car. I can drive to Knoxville to run my errands, to go to Trader Joe's, to go to Target. Oh, why am I sitting in a cemetery reliving things that happened to me like 40 years ago? Why?
It's not helpful.
It's not helpful. But it's because I had never really acknowledged it, worked through it, brought it all into my awareness so that it could be healed, submitted it to God, like, okay, I don't have to carry this anymore, like all of the stuff that, we do to heal it. And since I've done that work, it never occurs to me.
Yeah, and
to
the
go
thing
to the
is,
to the
what
cemetery.
I've learned, just even with Haddon leaving, like, it's really hard. It's really hard, and this is on a much smaller scale, and much less time has passed, obviously.
Yeah.
But something that it's taught me already is, and I have been letting myself feel my emotions. Have been super proud of myself for just accepting how I feel in the moment, and then moving on because you have to. But gosh, it has become so, like, I've realized how easy it is to let yourself so easily fall into the drama of your brain. Like,
oh my gosh.
It's literally so easy. Like, your brain wants that so much. I'll be sitting in bed. I have just talked about how grateful I am for this time. Like, I really have made peace with it. Like, what else is there to do?
Yeah.
But literally, it's like, oh, let me just, like, go look at pictures. Yeah, it's just so easy. You can literally create the drama, even if there's all reason to be so dramatic and all reason to be so sad with your dad. Like, there are so many reasons why you should be able to go to a cemetery and bawl.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you can find literally, like, of course.
And that might be good for you to do on occasion.
On occasion.
Yeah.
Yes, but also
not every single time you drive down a road.
Well, and you have to, like, your brain is going to let you do that every time.
Yeah.
Like, there is no other way to, like, control yourself other than, like, doing it. Like, you letting yourself just be in that drama all the time, like, how does that make you feel? It's not good.
Yeah. And one of the ways that I started doing this, and I've done a couple of different types of therapy, and I've done a lot of coaching, but one of the things that I started with, and I don't remember who I first read this from, but it was to go treasure hunting in my past. And so when I was writing my book, I had already written these very, like, cornerstone stories from my life that had felt like these are life-defining stories. And when I discovered this concept of, like, treasure hunting in your past, I was like, okay, so for every one of those stories, I want to go find out, because those stories were mostly about loss, how I wasn't loved or valued, or how I was in danger, or how I wasn't taken care of, right? So I went treasure hunting in my past to find all the ways I was loved, and I was cherished, and I was cared for, and how God sent exactly the right person at exactly the right time. And what was amazing to me is that for every, like, cornerstone moment of my life that felt like loss and rejection and not being cared for, every single time there was an equally powerful, monumental person who stood in for me, who showed up for me, who took care of me, who loved me, who, like, it was like when I first started to recognize it. And then, because this is how your brain works, you turn your brain on to look for it. Because before that, my brain was always just conditioned to keep finding moments that confirmed the story my brain wants to believe.
I was, like, abandoned.
I was rejected. I was abandoned.
Yes.
I wasn't cared for, right? So your brain is like, oh, I'll find some more stories for you like that. And when I turned my brain in a different direction and told it, like, we're going to find all of the ways that you were loved and cared for and all of that, I found them, and I kept finding them.
All the pretty things you could say.
All the pretty things you could say, yeah. And that I know 100%, you guys, no matter what you're struggling with or what you're going through right now, the exact same is true for you. And it is such a powerful process, especially when you have very life-changing events that you kind of hang your mental hat on. Like, this is why I'm this way. This is why I have to, do this. This is why. I always used to carry around this sort of feeling of being like so heavy. Like, I feel like I'm carrying around the weight of the world all the time. I feel like it's like carrying around an extra 1,000 pounds. I always used to feel like that. And I remember the first time that I ever walked out of therapy and thought, oh, I don't feel that anymore. I'm not carrying that. And then I started teaching this concept of like this heavy backpack that we're all carrying around, of unprocessed emotion, of unhealed trauma, of issues that we've never brought into our awareness, that we've never allowed God to really just, minister to and heal. And we are free to lay that down. We are not meant to go through life carrying an extra 1,000 pounds with this heavy backpack of these stories that we have about ourselves, these hurts and emotions that, are weighing us down. And it really became my mission in life after that, because I'm like, okay, if it is possible to rewrite a story that actually happened and to reimagine it in a different way, it's possible to do anything. It's possible to decide you want to focus your energy on anything. You can create whatever you want to create in your life. If you can do that, you can do anything.
I have a question, because I feel like a natural human response, like even it brought up in my head, like when you said, I guarantee you, because I looked back at my story and I found all the things that held me and kept me safe, and I found all those things, and I guarantee that you can find those too.
Yeah. It's
almost like immediate human nature to be like, well, you can't say that everyone could find beautiful things. Like if that was their first response in their head, where would you?
Here's what I would say to that. It really is a stance of faith. Do we believe God when he says all things are working together for your good? Do we believe him that he loves us and everything that's happening is somehow for us? And it's like that overarching stance of faith, belief in this God who loves us so much. If we believe that, it's not a stretch to say that everything happening will somehow be twisted for our good. Now, does it mean that I have to look back and go, this particular abuse was good? No. That particular abuse was heinous and
should never have happened.
Yes. But can I look at that situation and go, like, I trust that God loves me so much that he will do a work in me that will make it seem as if even that was somehow twisted into good.
Yes.
We
have that kind of faith.
We have that him. We have that kind of God. We have that kind of faith in a God who loves us so much that somehow all of this is working out for our good. And when you start to see life through that lens, it reminds me of C.S. Lewis's book, The Great Divorce, that what will happen is that he will kind of go back and redeem all of it. If you allow him to just do the work he's here to do in the world, which is redemption, he'll just keep going back and redeeming all of it. And it's funny because when we were talking yesterday, I had texted Cousin Jamie. For those of you who've read the book, I know you love Cousin Jamie. I had texted her and said, hey, can you send me this picture? And it was this picture of me when I was a baby. Granny, my mom was in there, my dad, and some of my other relatives were in there. And that picture of my dad is so cute. He's
so cute.
So cute. We were just like, look at him. He's so cute. Even Granny was like, I know, he was cute.
He was so charming.
He was so charming. He was so cute. And what's crazy to me now is that I feel so endeared to him in way more of a powerful way than I ever have. And to me, that feels like a miracle. It feels like that reaching back into the past and just redeeming every little thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I do believe that is possible for all of us. I know it is. And holding on to, you know, the anticipation of watching that continuing to happen in Thomas, like, it's such a powerful thing to think about. So, I mean, I just wanted to speak into that for people who feel like, because I hear this a lot, the pushback that you gave, people will say, well, what about this situation?
Yeah,
well, what about this situation?
What reminded me of it is we had posted something on, like, a clip of one of your podcasts. You were talking about joy.
Yeah.
And I don't blame these people at all, but some of the comments on that post were, like, giving specific examples of why, well, that's not joyful. So you can't really say that all things can be joyful in this specific situation. And
to that, what I would say is that the way I think I've best heard joy defined is like a deep down belief that all is well.
Yes. And that doesn't
you can have that in any situation.
You can. And I think if you're automatic, and I tell this to myself too, because it's normal for your automatic response to be a pushback to that, because that is exactly where your brain would go. That's like so normal.
Yes.
But if that's your automatic response, I would challenge yourself to think of why is that your automatic response. And
maybe even ask yourself, maybe not right in the middle of, you know, a really hard challenge or at that point, what you really need is just comfort and somebody to support you and you to support yourself.
You don't need to figure out why.
Figure out how joy is present even then. But when you get past that and you can look back, I will often ask myself the question, how is it true that even in that, all will be well?
And that is what God promises us. And it does. It's a nice test of your faith. Like, do I really, really believe his promise to me?
Yeah.
And if you don't, like, there is something you're missing out on, because he freely gives that to everyone.
Yeah. And it's kind
available.
of a matter, to me, that's why I love even talking about these stories that we have about ourselves that we just can let go of. Whether your story is something dramatic like mine was about my past, or your story is, you know, I don't really have purpose in life right now. I never finish what I start. I'm terrible with money. I'm never going to get healthy. You probably, I definitely have had lots of stories like that where I believed things about myself, and believing them kept me stuck, you know? So whether it's something like that from your past that you want to let go of, it really is as simple and as challenging as, will you let go of that story and reimagine? What do you want to be true about that? I wanted to have that feeling. I remember it brought it to light. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I was at Truth and Treasure.
Yep.
Decorating for this big fundraising event. And there was a friend of mine there. And I watched her with her dad. And I had to leave decorating for the event. I went into the bathroom and started sobbing. This was like 2 years, I think, before my book came out. So I was working through all my issues with my dad. So I'm watching this adult woman have this amazing, loving, nurturing, funny, her dad was funny, so it was like a funny relationship with her dad. And I was like, gosh, I am never going to get to experience that right there. Like, that to me is the essence of a joyful life, and that is never available to me. Because first of all, he's gone, and you know, it just felt like,
even if it's like, you can make it also like, even if he was here, it
wouldn't be like that. Yeah. And so it felt like this very final, like, see, you're never going to have that. And what was interesting for me in working through that is that was such a lie, because I have been able to experience that. Not exactly in that way, but like that deep down sense that I am loved and cared for, and that
You're
all the
understood
joy is available
and
to me. I'm
someone-
understood, and I can have relationships that are deep and life-giving like that. Yeah. And so even then, when I was even doing some of this work and trying to reconcile it all in my mind, it felt like, okay, no, this is not possible. You're never going to have this. Look at that. You can never have that. And over the last 10 or 12 years, I feel sometimes I have trained myself so much to this way of living that sometimes I wake up and I can hardly believe that this is the life I have. Mm-hmm. And it still isn't always easy.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah, I mean, even with Tom. Like, and it's so fun to watch from the outside because I know that's how you live your life, because just the products of you living a life like that, like, it's pretty clear when someone really believes that their life is a gift and it's where you're meant to be, because you usually are creating that everywhere. And even as much as good as you do,
there are still moments, y'all.
Tom is human, and so are you. And it was so funny.
And it's funny. People talk about being trauma bonded. I feel like the two of us might be. Yeah.
It's so funny. We were in the car yesterday. He has a Western or country singer Spirit Week. So we literally got him boots, new work boots, steel-toed boots.
He's grown out of everything. He had no jeans that fit.
No jeans, so we had to go get him jeans.
That fit. Yep.
And he loves drama. He does. And he literally, in the car yesterday, we were talking about, I don't even know how we get on this subject, but he was like, every time you're around, he's going to bring up every single time you've said a bad word, which one it was.
He told me, he said, and you've said 3 of them.
And then he looks at Mom, and he's like, remember when you called me an a-hole? And all of us in the car immediately started just dying because it was just so perfect. It was like perfectly timed. And he's hilarious. Like, even in that, like, just the way he brings it up and the truth that he just, like, puts right in your face.
Yep.
It's hilarious.
Yep.
And also, it's, like, just a funny reminder of, like, even if you you've got it together and you deal with him, like, sometimes is just
under your breath you're saying things that you hope they don't hear, and they do.
But it was so funny because he said, even then, he was like, you know I love drama.
He did say that.
Sold it. Yes, that's exactly what he said. He said, I got out of the car and looked at you soul to soul, and you said, isn't that when you said it?
Yeah, I think I mumbled under my breath.
After you said it.
Yeah.
He said, y'all looked at each other soul to soul, and I shook my head. And it's like, you are literally hilarious. How did you even think of that? And how do you remember? He said, I remember everything. You know I love drama.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, too, is that acknowledging, like, literally for all of us, no matter where we are, acknowledging all of these things that are still in there. Mm-hmm. Like, for me, I still have to do the work. I still have to go, oh, like, somebody did something that triggered something in me, and bring it to the surface. And I think I don't know, is it that we feel this need to be so perfect that we're afraid to acknowledge our real humanity? Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, he has made it to where I can't do that.
Well, and I think that's another reason why trauma is a hard thing to talk about, specifically like in our time period in the culture we live in, because even with the word triggers, like,
yeah, people are
it's
like,
so,
what is that?
Yeah, and it's like it's overused.
Yeah.
And I think it gives people this excuse, these triggers, which are valid. Like, it is a valid thing if you have gone through traumatic experiences for certain other experiences to bring up that same feeling.
That same feeling.
That's
a trigger.
A trigger, and that's normal.
Yeah.
But also, you can so weaponize that term.
Yes.
And just letting... It's
everything
like
triggers you.
Everything triggers you. And
So then it doesn't mean anything.
It turns this thing that you can really use for your advantage. Like, oh, during that specific situation, for some reason that brings up this feeling in me. Like, you can use that and understand yourself so much better instead of being like, oh, I'm triggered by that, I'm going to put up my boundaries and not. It just really, like,
use that as a way to bring it up, to give light to it, because when you bring light and compassion to something, it disarms it. Whatever that thing was that had such a hold over you, bring it up to the light of day, bring some compassion, let God speak into it.
Yes.
It's disarming.
Because if you're always on edge and always having like an arm's length so that as to not get triggered or to never put yourself in a situation where you would ever be challenged in that way, well, you're never going to get close to people. And here's the thing. The truth about life is not everyone is triggered by the same things, and certain situations are not going to, it's not going to cause that for someone else. And you're constantly going to be surrounded by people who may not know your situation.
Yes.
And you don't need to hold other people always to the responsibility to take care of you.
Right.
Because not
you
everyone.
You take care of yourself. That's why I'm saying, like, this is so important for you to heal, bring into your awareness and heal it so that you can be around anybody in any situation.
And
You've
have
got
true
your
connection.
resilience, and you can be connected to people.
Yeah, because that's really, I think, what helps most people and what also isolates most people who have had these situations. Like, yeah, that can be really isolating, and also you can cause a lot of that isolation yourself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make, like, it does not make what happened to you valid or good, and that you should just say that it was okay.
No.
Like, you can still
it's different than that. It's different than just saying, oh, that was all okay. No, that wasn't okay. And now what?
Yes.
Now what do I want to create in my life? Now how do I want to create relationships? How do I want to,
I always think about, too, like, with your situation, if you would have, like, the difference of your life if you would have stayed a victim to your past, which you very well could have. Like, there are, and I know there's things you never probably even shared that are so horrible, but, like, imagine the difference in your trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
And your relationships, and even with Thomas. Like, if you had never looked at your past through a different lens and rewritten your story.
Well, what happens is the generations just keep passing the pain on down. And the question is, are you courageous enough to take in the pain, transmute it, let God heal it, and then that way it stops here, it stops with this generation, instead of us perpetuating this cycle of this generational trauma. It's kind of what I was listening to last week, is we just get in these cycles of just perpetuating this generational trauma to each other, because it is a difficult work to do, to say, okay, I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to go get some therapy. I'm willing to bring it into awareness. I'm willing to feel the pain. I'm willing to acknowledge myself. I'm willing to, do all the work that is required to sort of hold the pain, and so that I'm not passing it down.
Well, yeah, and it's so true. Like, people ask me all the time, especially from this podcast, and it's a perspective I don't really see, but they're like, wow, she's so, like, she's so wise for how old she is. But really, the reason that I can see situations the way I do is because you healed yourself and you took that time, and I can see your life from a perspective that I probably wouldn't have been able to see it from if you wouldn't have done what you did for your life.
Yeah.
Like, even though nothing super traumatic happened to me, if you would still be operating from all that happened to you.
Yes.
Even without,
you're going to pass it down.
You're going to pass it down. And I think because
you do inevitably, I'm sure you end up,
there's
some things that you end up passing down anyways, which is why we just all need God's love and forgiveness over and over and over. It's kind of a daily thing. But I do think that when you're willing to, this is why I really, this is actually why I think that we are in relationship with the people we're in relationship with. I think it is God's way of being so loving to us and saying, this person is going to
show you
areas that maybe the word trigger or whatever, show you areas in you that are still unhealed, that you can still, bring to the light of day, that you can let his love, touch and heal. So I do think that, the people in our lives are there for a reason. And it's such an amazing opportunity that we are given to be here, to do the work that we each can do, I think, in this, to share his love and light with everybody we meet. I think it's one of the most important ways is to look at, it's kind of like, instead of just living your life all the time, you stop for a moment, you get a little bit of a perspective, and you look and go, oh, okay, I see what I've been creating by living from the stories I've been living with.
Yep.
And do I want to now create something different?
Yeah. And I think there's so much in someone being able to share their experience from a place of like healing and not a place of like still being a victim to it.
Yeah.
Like, think about how much you could impact people from being able to, move forward from what has happened to you in your life.
Yes.
So many people are waiting to learn from you. So many people are in your life, and like anyone can look at their life and see
And
that. Yeah, and do that.
Yes.
So
good. Well, that was, man.
This couch.
This was such a great discussion. I hope it has blessed you guys. We want to say this. We have gotten, so many amazing reviews lately.
Thank you
for the
so
podcast.
Much.
It has blessed us so much. We're so grateful when you take the time to do that, when you take the time to share it on your social media so other people can find it. If you know people who could use this episode today, and I bet you do, send them the link and let our words maybe be a balm of healing for them. But we just want to say thank you because it means so much when you do that. We were reading some of the newest reviews that we've gotten, and it just brings tears to my eyes.
It's like such a precious group of women and people who want to support each other. It gives you so much hope.
Yes.
And it's just amazing. We're so thankful.
Yeah. So we thank you so much. Do we have any?
Oh gosh,
let's just do a combined 3 because we didn't really prep for the 3. Have we got a combined 3 for our top 3 that we can share this week? I bet we do.
Let me think. I have a new lip liner that I've been loving. And I actually know that on one of the last episodes I also did a lip liner, but I would say this one's even better. And I've never tried this brand.
Okay.
Anything, I don't think.
Okay.
Huda Beauty.
What's it called?
Huda.
Huda? Okay.
Huda. And I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it.
Okay.
But their lip liner, I'm going to have you try it. It is like, unlike any other lip liner, you know how most lip liners, it is like a pencil type, like feel. Like it kind of goes on a little hard.
Okay.
This is like, it is very soft. It's very creamy, and you can really build it up. Like, you could put it on thick and have, like, a really bold color.
Alrighty.
What I like to do is just put it on, like, the outside, and I just kind of rub it in. And it is amazing. I can't remember the color, so I'll link it. But
okay. We'll link the lip liner.
I've been loving that.
Love that.
Yes.
I don't know if I've ever shared this, you guys, but I have been on a little bit of a castor oil kick. Have we talked about this?
No, we haven't.
Okay. I'm going to have to put the link for the one that I ordered that I've been using. I really do believe it has given my skin, like there are a couple times when I look down at my skin and go, am I 25 right now?
No, totally. You look 25.
Oh my gosh, this castor oil. Because I do feel like, as we age, we lose the estrogen, which keeps everything nice and supple and moist and, your joints, your skin, all of that.
Okay.
And I think it was an Instagram ad. I can't remember, but it's mostly an Instagram ad.
Of course.
That I fall for. But it's a very specific type of castor oil. It's like got a rollerball top.
Oh.
So I'll show it to you. But anyways, castor oil, baby. Apparently lots of benefits that I wasn't all that aware of. So.
Wow.
Anything else you got, Em?
Well,
we do have you can still do your other one, but I will say for any of you locals, we have a new sandwich place in town called Between the Bricks.
Can we go there for lunch, by the way?
Let's go there for lunch because they have a sandwich called the Man Eater. It's so good.
Yeah.
We love you, April.
It is so good, and it's because it's run by that Angel April.
Angel April, who used to run Java Garden downtown.
I love her.
These sandwiches
she does not know me.
But these sandwiches are to die for, and it's so cute down there. So if you're ever visiting Little Morristown, Tennessee, go to Between the Bricks and get yourself some lunch. So good. And I will say this, a few doors down is the tea room, which has the best squash soup in all the land.
The fruit tea.
So the other day, I had the squash soup and the Man Eater.
Oh,
Thank
can
you,
we
Katie.
do that?
It was amazing.
Did y'all do that last time?
We did that last time. So sorry.
Yeah, whatever. I was going to say, this one's really funny. One of my favorite things and least favorite things, by the way, is the military. Because we had like family, they had like a family day, and I have never won a raffle in my life. And
I didn't know you won. I mean, I knew you won a raffle, but what did you win?
So, okay, also another is his granddaddy, because really the only reason I won this raffle is because of him. Because he made everyone give their raffle to me and put them in the line next to my seat.
Stop it.
And he was like, sorry, everybody, but if one of these wins, it goes to Emmy. Which I thought was really sweet.
I love him so much.
And
this is Haddon's granddaddy.
Yeah, he's been featured on this show multiple times.
Yeah.
But one of the numbers was one of the numbers in my stack, and he was like, that's you. And also I was so embarrassed because literally it was all the military men in that room, and I had to like stand up and be like, woo! And I won a $200 gift card to Walmart.
Stop it.
Yes.
Wow.
So yeah, and they were giving away like UT tickets.
Whoa.
They're like, sorry that your people have to leave, but here's $200 gift card.
Sorry that your heart is broken. Please go to Walmart.
And I will say it did help.
And it helps. It really does help with the pain.
I felt really good. But anyway, yeah.
I love it. Okay.
So I'll let you guys know what I get from Walmart.
I'm going to do the fisherman's scarf. Please, everyone, search. If you're a knitter, search fisherman's scarf and get yourself this new stitch here. It's so pretty. Okay.
I love it.
Love y'all so much. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.